What's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken and welcome back to another video. In this Paladins Beginner's Guide, I'll be going over how to play the Frontline class. Frontliners, or tanks, are among the strongest champions in the realm and are the toughest to kill, making them useful for buying space for their team and holding onto the objective. For this reason, Frontliners are incredibly useful in any siege comp, but are not as important for the team deathmatch or onslaught game modes. Of course, that shouldn't discourage you from using them in TDM or Onslaught, since some tanks like Makoa are incredibly lethal and can be a larger threat than a damage champion in some cases. Now, there are two different subcategories of tanks known as point tanks and off tanks. Point tanks are the tanks that specialize in holding objectives and keeping enemies away, such as Inara and Barrack. Off tanks, on the other hand, are essentially damage and flank champions with a massive health pool and should be played more aggressively to buy space for the team, with examples of these including Fernando and Ruckus. Some tanks can fit in both subcategories to some extent, like Makoa, who is mainly an off tank but can hold his own in a point fight as well. Torvald is the only real exception of these subcategories, because while he isn't a point tank, he can't be very aggressive and buy space for his team like an off tank would. Torvald is more of a supportive tank instead, buffing his teammates with shields and increased damage so they can buy the space for him. When choosing which tanks to draft, you want to keep your team's composition in mind. It's ideal to have two tanks on your team, one off tank and one point tank. But if you're forced to only have one tank, it's usually the best idea to choose a point tank, since an off tank won't be able to push aggressively as effectively without a strong point tank to defend the objective. A solo off tank can still be viable with an aggressive team comp that has champions which aren't restricted to the backline. However, if you have a sniper on your team and you have to solo tank, you should always pick a point tank to help provide the sniper with plenty of opportunities to deal damage, since you'll be attracting fire to the point which will enable your sniper to pick off the enemies that poke their heads out to shoot you. When starting a round of siege, a tank usually has three options: to push one of the flank routes, to push the objective, or to stay back and protect the backline against an enemy flank push. Usually an off tank will either try and aggressively push up one of the flank routes in order to penetrate the backline and kill the enemy team's squishy damage champions. When aggressively flanking like this, it's usually a good idea not to go alone, because while there is a chance that you can catch one of them off guard and score an easy kill, it's more likely that the entire enemy backline will turn around and start shooting at you. So if you're going to flank as a tank, you should always bring some help and commit to the push. Alternatively, if you know the enemy team will try and flank your team right at the start, it can be better to stay behind and defend your backline against the enemy team's push. It is the tank's job to protect the healer, and so helping defend them early on in the point fight can mean the difference between winning and losing the point. The last option of heading straight to the point is reserved for the point tanks, who can usually set up camp on the objective and try to defend it from the incoming enemies. Against some team comps, like those that only have an off tank, this strategy can work. However, it's often a better idea for the point tank to try and secure the high ground of whatever map you're fighting on. On Stone Keep, it is leagues more important to secure the high ground in the keep, because if you can earn that space for your team, capturing the objective will be much easier. Now, once you've won the initial point fight or have captured the objective, you should push up and away from the objective to zone out the enemies. In this phase of the battle, it is the healer's job to stay on point unless the map has a large objective like Ascension Peak, in which case it might be smart to leave one tank near the point in case an enemy champion breaches your zoning. When zoning, you should not push up as far as possible until you reach the enemy team's spawn. Zoning involves going up to a critical choke point on the map and then dismounting the enemies and stalling them as much as possible so they can't reach the objective on time. A huge mistake I see a lot of tank players make is that they'll just push up way too far, and then an enemy will either slip by them or kill them, and from there the enemy team can make an easy comeback and retake the objective. Smart zoning is one of the most important things you can learn as a tank, and it comes from both experience and also knowing not to push up too far once you've taken control of the objective. Of course, there will be times when you get pushed off the objective and the enemy team is now zoning you off the objective. When that happens, the most important thing is that you group up. I've seen far too many tank players just charge in versus the entire enemy team alone, and get killed and lose their team the point as a result. Unless the enemy team has 3 points and has almost won, you can afford to regroup with your team and try and retake the objective. It is much better to wait a few seconds so your team can respawn and you can all push the objective together than for you to rush onto the point alone, stop the enemy team from capping for a second or two, and then just die, leaving your team without a tank to push the objective again and staggering yourself so your team isn't fully together as one fighting force. On the topic of charging in alone and dying, you also shouldn't spam VHS at your healer, especially if you're the only one fighting the enemy team at that time. VHS spam just makes your healer angry and less likely to heal you. Instead, if you feel that you're getting inadequate healing, you should make sure that your positioning wasn't bad and that you were within line of sight of your healer, or that your healer wasn't just flat out dead. Again, it is your job to help defend your healer if they need help. So, you should make sure that it wasn't your own fault that you died before asking your healer politely for more healing. That way you'll have a much better time tanking and you'll have a better chance of taking the objective and winning the game. So anyways, that's the end of this video. Did this video help you understand the basics of being a successful frontliner in Paladins? Let me know in the comments if you did, and also don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content like this from me. Also, if you have a friend who you think might benefit from this video, be sure to share it with them so they can become a better frontliner. Lastly, make sure to check out my Twitch and Discord server, both of which are linked in the description. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.